Warriors, there comes a moment when the people you built your world around simply vanish. Not because of a fight, not because of betrayal, but because the current of life carries some souls downstream while you remain anchored in place. And in that sudden, deafening silence, when you scan the horizon and find yourself alone, a profound realization will dawn on you. You were never incomplete. You were merely waiting for the noise to fade so you could finally hear your own voice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." He knew a secret we chase our whole lives, that the only unshakable ground beneath your feet is the one you build within your own spirit. Everything else is borrowed. Relationships shift, circumstances twist, promises dissolve like mist. But the soul you forge, the resilience you cultivate in the quiet hours, that endures. To stand alone isn't a testament to failure. It's a declaration of self-sufficiency. There is a vast chasm between isolation and chosen stillness. Isolation aches with longing. Chosen stillness breathes with wholeness. Isolation screams for a rescuer. Chosen stillness whispers that you were never lost. And bridging that gap changes everything. We are conditioned to dread solitude, to view it as a void. We're told that needing no one makes us unfeeling, detached. But that's a lie. The most formidable souls you'll ever encounter walked through infernos with no one to hold their hand. They didn't become cold, they became unbreakable. They didn't shut their hearts. They simply stopped issuing keys to every passerby. This isn't an argument for pushing the world away. It's a call to consolidate your own power. It's understanding that before you can truly unite with another, you must first be a complete nation unto yourself. And that demands a courage most never muster, because standing alone forces you to confront what you've been fleeing, your hidden fears, your acknowledged weaknesses, the pieces of yourself you projected onto others. But here's the revelation no one shares. On the other side of that confrontation lies genuine liberation, the kind of freedom that asks no permission, seeks no applause. The kind that doesn't crumble when footsteps walk away. The kind that reveals you were never truly abandoned. You were just finally introduced to yourself. If this stirs something in you, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs this message. Subscribe to Stoic Mindset Mastery. These words are crafted for a purpose. Stay with me to the end. If this resonates, type this now. I am whole on my own. Number 1, master the art of existing without witnesses. The applause will eventually cease. One day, the voices that cheered your every move will fall silent. Not because you became less, but because attention is the most fleeting currency in existence. It shifts like sand, always moving, never settling. And if you built your identity on being seen, you'll collapse the moment the spotlight moves. Seneca warned us, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." The craving we all face is the hunger for validation. The true test is learning to act with integrity when no one is keeping score, to pursue excellence when there's no audience to impress, to persevere when the stadium empties. Think about it. How often have you accomplished something meaningful and your immediate reflex was to broadcast it, to share it, to ensure it was witnessed? That instinct is human. We crave connection. But when that reflex becomes a requirement, when your life feels invalid without a digital echo, you've surrendered your sovereignty. Living for spectators turns you into an actor on your own stage. You stop asking, "Does this fulfill my purpose?" and start asking, "Will this look good on my profile?" You stop aligning with your values and start curating for their reactions. Your contentment becomes contingent on their likes. Your serenity becomes hostage to their comments, and gradually, imperceptibly, the authentic you disappears. The self beneath the performance gets buried under layers of crafted persona, Every interaction becomes a strategy. Every moment becomes content. You start filtering your life in real time, deleting anything that doesn't fit the expected narrative. You edit your pain. You polish your joy. You stage moments that appear meaningful instead of truly inhabiting them. And the cruelest part, you start believing your own performance. You forget who you were before the performance began. You lose access to your genuine desires because you've chased manufactured ones for so long. You accumulate achievements that feel hollow because they were chosen for their external appeal. And then you stand atop a peak you never wanted to climb, wondering why the vista feels empty. The truth is, most people aren't scrutinizing you as closely as you imagine. They're not tracking your successes and failures. They're too absorbed in their own performances, managing their own audiences, trying to impress people who aren't watching them either. It's a collective illusion. Everyone performing for everyone. No one truly living. Most observers of your life don't care as much as you assume. They'll celebrate your wins because it's effortless. They'll forget you by morning because they have their own battles. And that's not cruelty, that's reality. We are all protagonists in our own narratives. Everyone else is supporting cast. So what's the solution? You become your own witness. You learn to validate yourself. You rise and execute what must be done, not for recognition, but because you'll know you did it. You pursue goals that ignite your soul, even if they confuse others. You discover contentment in the unshared moments, the ones that never reach a screen. You become someone who doesn't require constant external confirmation of their existence. This doesn't mean becoming isolated or aloof. It means becoming free. Free to stumble without embarrassment. Free to triumph without needing a parade. Free to simply exist without performing. And here's the beauty of that freedom. When you stop chasing an audience, you start attracting the right people. Not followers, not fans, but genuine humans who see the real you, not the curated highlights. The strongest version of you is the one that operates in private. The you that no one witnesses. The you that makes difficult choices in the dark. The you that honors commitments to yourself when breaking them would be simpler. That's the you that counts. That's the you that will sustain you through every storm. Modern culture taught us that if it wasn't shared, it didn't happen. But before algorithms and screens, people lived entire, profound lives that only their immediate circle ever glimpsed. They created, they loved, they struggled, they overcame, all without needing the world to observe. They thrived, without an audience, and they were stronger for it. You can do the same. Start quietly. Do something meaningful today and tell no one. Notice how that feels. Observe the discomfort. That discomfort is your addiction to external validation, screaming for a fix. Sit with it. Breathe through it. Let it dissolve. Repeat tomorrow and the day after. Gradually, you'll realize something essential. The worth of your actions isn't determined by who knows about them. It's determined by the simple fact that you chose to do them. Construct a life that doesn't require spectators. Generate meaning that doesn't demand recognition. Discover joy that isn't dependent on likes or shares. Become someone who is complete, even in an empty room. Because one day, you will be in that room. And when that moment comes, you need to be able to meet your own gaze and know, without anyone else's confirmation, that you are enough. The audience will depart. Ensure you're still standing when they do. If you're ready to break free from seeking approval, declare it below. I am my own validation. Number 2, never gauge loyalty by declarations. Promises are weightless when skies are clear. Everyone adores you when adoration costs nothing. They'll vow eternity when eternity is just a syllable. They'll pledge allegiance when no trial exists to test it. But words without substance are merely vibrations in the air. And the moment pressure mounts, you'll discover who meant what they said and who was just filling the silence with pretty sounds. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. The same principle applies to loyalty. Genuine loyalty doesn't need proclamations. It doesn't require constant reaffirmation or theatrical displays. Real loyalty materializes. It remains. It demonstrates itself through consistent action, especially when action is difficult. Listen carefully to this. People will assure you they'll be there. They'll promise to stand with you through anything. They'll speak with such certainty, such conviction, that you'll build your foundation on their presence. You'll trust their words like you trust the sunrise. And then the tempest arrives. The authentic test comes. And suddenly, those words dissolve like fog under a morning sun. This isn't about becoming bitter. It's about becoming discerning. There's a crucial difference. Bitterness says, trust no one. Discernment says, trust behavior over promises. Bitterness builds walls. Discernment builds awareness. And awareness protects you without freezing your heart. You'll notice a pattern once you start observing. The individuals who speak most passionately about loyalty are frequently the first to flee. They deliver grand speeches about solidarity. They share quotes about true friendship and unwavering commitment. They throw around words like brother and family like confetti. But when the actual moment of truth arrives, when loyalty requires sacrifice rather than sentiment, they're mysteriously absent. Meanwhile, the genuinely loyal ones rarely announce themselves. They don't need to convince you of their dedication because they're too occupied demonstrating it. They don't talk about being present, they simply show up. They don't promise assistance, they're already helping before you articulate the need. Their loyalty is so consistent, so dependable, that you almost overlook it until you witness how exceptionally rare it actually is. Observe how people respond when you're no longer beneficial to them, when you can't provide what you once offered, when your position changes, your resources diminish, when association with you becomes complex or uncomfortable. That's when truth emerges. Some people cherished you, others cherished what you provided, and the gap between those two things is vast. Here's what pressure accomplishes. It exposes. When circumstances grow difficult, when standing with you becomes inconvenient or risky or uncomfortable, people reveal who they genuinely are, not who they claimed to be, not who they aspired to be, but who they actually are when it counts. And you must pay attention to this, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clear perception and a protected heart. Some people vanish the moment your value to them decreases. They were never loyal to you. They were loyal to what you offered: status, entertainment, resources, a reflection of their own image. And when those elements shifted, so did they. They didn't betray you. They simply stopped pretending. Others disappear because they're fragile, not malicious people, just individuals who cannot bear weight. They care about you, but they care about their comfort more. They'd support you, but not if it costs them something genuine. They're present for celebration, but not for reconstruction, and that's acceptable. You can love people while acknowledging their limitations. You can appreciate what they contributed while accepting what they cannot provide. Then there are the rare ones, the ones who don't just say they'll remain, they remain. They don't theatricalize their loyalty, they simply prove it. They arrive when arrival is arduous. They defend you when you're absent. They speak difficult truths when lies would be simpler. They remain consistent when everything around you is chaos. These individuals are precious. Treat them accordingly. You'll recognize these people not by their words, but by their patterns. They're consistent across months, across years, across changing circumstances. They don't selectively choose when to be loyal based on personal advantage. They don't perform friendship when convenient and disappear when it's demanding. Their presence in your life isn't conditional on your success or failure. It's rooted in something deeper, something authentic. And here's what you must understand about these people. They're not flawless. They'll make mistakes. They'll disappoint you sometimes. They'll have their own struggles that distract them. But the difference is they'll return. They'll apologize. They'll acknowledge when they fall short. They'll work to repair what fractured. Because their commitment to you isn't contingent on perfection. It's grounded in genuine care. But here's the challenging part. You must stop being shocked when people don't show up. Stop being devastated when promises shatter. Stop surrendering your peace to individuals who were never going to honor their word. Because if you measure everyone by their promises, you'll spend your existence in disappointment. But if you measure them by their actions, you'll know precisely who deserves your trust. Start observing what people do, not what they say. Do they follow through? Do they make time or manufacture excuses? When you need them, do they appear or send a message explaining why they can't? When you're struggling, do they inquire about your well-being or wait until you're entertaining again? These patterns reveal everything. And once you perceive the patterns, you cannot unsee them. This means you'll have to release some people. Not with drama, not with resentment, but with clarity. You'll have to accept that some relationships had an expiration date you didn't recognize. That some individuals were only meant to occupy a chapter, not the entire book. And that's not failure, that's wisdom. That's you protecting your energy and your heart from those who cannot hold them properly. Stop pleading with people to become who they promised they'd be. Stop waiting for them to transform into who you need them to be. See them as they are right now, in this moment, through their actions, not their words. And make your decisions based on that truth. Because ultimately, loyalty isn't demonstrated in comfort. It's demonstrated in crisis. It's not what someone says when everything is easy. It's what they do when everything is hard. And the people who remain when remaining is difficult. Those are your people. Everyone else was merely rehearsing lines. Stop measuring loyalty by declarations. Measure it by presence, by consistency, by action, and you'll never be blindsided again. If you've learned this lesson through experience, drop this in the comments. I trust what I see. Number 3, today you exist. Tomorrow you're a memory. Your name will eventually fade. Everything you're constructing, everything you're defending, everything you believe defines you, it will all return to dust. The individuals who know your story today won't be present in a century. The accomplishments you're pursuing will be forgotten. The reputation you're protecting will dissolve. And that's not tragic. That's liberating. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He understood something we constantly forget. Impermanence isn't an enemy, it's a teacher. It strips away everything false and reveals what genuinely matters. We expend enormous energy trying to be remembered. We obsess over legacy. We worry about what future generations will say. We make choices based on how they'll appear years from now. And all of that is simply fear wearing a different costume. Fear that our lives will lack meaning. Fear that we'll vanish without trace. Fear that we don't matter. Here's something that will either terrify you or set you free. In 100 years, almost everyone who knows your name will be gone. Your friends, your family, the people who witnessed your finest moments and your deepest failures, all gone. And with them goes your story. The narrative you spent your entire life constructing, the reputation you defended so fiercely, the image you worked so hard to maintain. It all disappears. Think about your great-great-grandparents. Do you know their names? Do you know what they valued? What kept them awake at night? What they dreamed of becoming? What broke their hearts? Probably not, and they were real people who lived complete lives who loved deeply, who struggled and hoped and feared. But to you, they're just names on a document, if that. This isn't meant to depress you. It's meant to awaken you. Because if you're going to be forgotten anyway, why are you living for the approval of people who won't remember you? Why are you making choices based on how they'll look to an audience that will cease to exist? Why are you defending a reputation that's already temporary? But here's the truth that will emancipate you. You already don't matter to most people right now while you're alive, and that's perfectly fine. The stranger passing you on the street won't recall your face. The person who cut you off in traffic already forgot you existed. Most people you've encountered have already moved on. They're living their own lives. You're a footnote in their story if you appear at all. And you know what? The same applies to everyone. The celebrities you admire, the leaders you follow, the people who seem so significant, so permanent, they're all temporary. Their fame is a moment. Their influence is borrowed time. In 2 generations, most will be names without faces. In 3, they'll be nothing at all. So why does this matter? Because when you accept that you'll be forgotten, you stop living for an imaginary future audience. You stop performing for people who won't remember. You stop making choices based on a legacy that won't exist. And you start living for right now, for this moment, for the people in front of you, for the life you can actually touch. This isn't depressing, this is freedom. When you realize nothing you do will echo through eternity, you're free to do what matters to you, not what looks impressive, not what sounds important, but what feels true. You can fail without shame because your failures won't be studied. You can succeed without pressure because your success won't define history. You can simply be human, messy, beautiful, and temporary. There's a relief that comes with accepting your own insignificance. Not the kind of insignificance that makes you feel worthless, the kind that makes you realize you're free. Free from the pressure of needing to be extraordinary. Free from the weight of building a legacy. Free from the exhausting work of managing how history will remember you, because history won't remember you. And that's acceptable. What matters isn't how many people know your name. It's how deeply you lived, how fully you loved, how present you were in the moments that composed your life. Those moments don't need documentation. They don't need to be witnessed by thousands. They just need to be real. They need to be yours. Think about the people who shaped your life. Your grandmother who taught you kindness. Your teacher who believed in you. Your friend who helped you through the darkest passage. Are they famous? Will history books mention them? No, but they mattered to you, and that's enough. That's everything. You don't need to change the world. You don't need to be remembered by millions. You need to matter to the people you love. You need to live in a way that feels authentic to who you are. You need to construct a life that satisfies your soul, not your ego. Because your ego craves immortality. Your soul simply wants peace. Here's what happens when you release the need to be remembered. You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. You stop chasing status that means nothing. You stop defending a reputation that's already fiction. You start asking better questions, not how will this look, but does this feel right? Not will people remember this, but will I be proud of this? You start living smaller and deeper. You invest in moments instead of monuments. You have genuine conversations instead of networking. You build authentic connections instead of collecting contacts. You laugh without worrying if it looks cool. You cry without worrying if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without constantly checking if it looks weak. You exist without. You're leaving a mark, because here's the final truth. The mark you leave isn't on the world. It's on the people you touch. And they won't remember your accomplishments. They won't quote your achievements. They'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember if you were kind, if you listened, if you showed up, if you were real. And when they forget you too, because they will, that's okay. You didn't live for them to remember. You lived because you were here, because you had breath in your lungs and a heart that beat, because you received this one chance to exist, and you didn't waste it trying to be immortal. Today you matter because you're here. Tomorrow you'll be forgotten because nothing lasts. And both of those things are true. Both of those things are acceptable. Live like it. If you're choosing presence over permanence, write this down. I live for today. Number 4, exist by resonance. Vitality follows alignment. Your vitality is sacred. Not your time, not your money, not even your focus. Your vitality, the life force that constitutes who you are, the fuel that powers everything you do and feel and create. And most individuals give it away as if it were infinite. They pour it into people who don't reciprocate. They waste it on relationships that exhaust them. They spend it chasing those who retreat, and then they wonder why they feel depleted. The Stoics had a phrase for this: waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Stop expending your vitality on people who don't recognize your worth. Stop explaining yourself to those who've already decided not to comprehend. Stop investing in connections where you're the only one contributing. Vitality follows alignment. Read that again. Your energy, your peace, your joy, They flow toward what matches your frequency, and they drain away from everything that doesn't. This isn't mystical. This is fundamental human truth. You feel lighter around certain people, heavier around others, more yourself in some spaces, less yourself in others. That's alignment revealing truth. Your body keeps score even when your mind manufactures excuses. Notice how you feel after spending time with certain individuals. Do you feel energized or exhausted, inspired or deflated, more confident or more insecure? Your nervous system is providing information. It's telling you whether this connection nourishes you or depletes you. Most people ignore these signals because acknowledging them means making difficult choices. We've been taught that walking away is giving up, that cutting people off is cruel, that if you truly cared, you'd stay regardless. But that's not wisdom. That's martyrdom. And martyrdom doesn't make you noble. It makes you resentful. It transforms you into someone who gives from an empty cup and then wonders why everything tastes bitter. There's a difference between supporting someone through a difficult season and being someone's emotional dumpster. Support is temporary. It has boundaries. It flows both ways eventually. Being an emotional dumpster means people deposit their chaos on you repeatedly, take what they need, and depart without ever asking if you're okay, without ever considering that you might need support too. Here's what most people misunderstand. They think loyalty means staying everywhere they've ever been, that love means never releasing, that commitment means pouring endlessly into people who give nothing back. But that's not loyalty, that's self-betrayal. Genuine loyalty starts with yourself, with honoring your own vitality, with protecting your own peace. Pay attention to how people make you feel. Not once, not in their finest moment, but consistently over time. Do you feel seen or invisible, valued or tolerated, energized or exhausted? Do they match your effort or take it for granted? Do they show up or manufacture excuses? Your body knows the answer before your mind admits it. That heaviness in your chest, that tension in your shoulders, that relief when they cancel plans. Listen to that. Some people are takers. They don't intend to be. They're simply living from an empty place, trying to fill themselves with whatever they can extract from others. They call when they need something. They disappear when you need them. They love what you provide, but never ask who you are. And if you permit them, they'll drain you completely. Not because they're evil, but because you taught them you're an endless well. Stop being an endless well for people who wouldn't offer you a cup of water. Here's what happens when you finally stop giving to people who only take. Initially, they'll be confused. They'll reach out more, wondering why you're suddenly unavailable. They'll test your boundaries, pushing to see if you truly mean it. Some will become angry. They'll accuse you of changing, of being selfish, of abandoning them. And you know what? Let them. Because what they're really saying is, I preferred you when I could use you. They're not upset that you changed. They're upset that they can no longer take from you without giving back. They're mourning the version of you that prioritized their comfort over your well-being. And that version needed to expire. When you start choosing alignment, you'll lose people. That's guaranteed. But examine closely who you're losing. You're not losing people who valued you. You're losing people who valued what you provided. You're not losing genuine connections. You're losing one-sided transactions that you mistook for relationships. And that's not loss, that's liberation. Then there are the ones who match you, who give as much as they take, who show up without being asked, who remember what matters to you, who celebrate your victories and sit with you in your defeats, who don't need you to be perfect or impressive or useful, who simply want you to be you. These people fill your cup while you fill theirs. This is alignment. This is where your vitality should flow. But here's the difficult part. Choosing alignment means releasing misalignment, and misalignment often wears a familiar face. It's the friend you've known for years who only discusses themselves. It's the family member who criticizes everything you do. It's the partner who takes more than they give. It's the colleague who uses your work to advance. And because you have history with these people, because you love them or feel obligated to them, you stay. You keep giving. You keep hoping. You keep emptying yourself into connections that will never replenish you. You need to stop, not with anger, not with announcements, but with quiet, firm boundaries. You need to redirect your vitality toward people who honor it, who deserve it, who reciprocate it. And you need to let the rest fade, not because you hate them, but because you love yourself more. This doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. You can wish someone well from a distance. You can love them without letting them drain you. You can release them without drama or declarations. You simply stop showing up where you're not valued. You stop chasing people who don't choose you. You stop forcing connections that don't flow. And then you watch what happens. The right people show up. The ones who are waiting for space in your life. The ones who see you and celebrate you and challenge you and grow with you. The ones who understand that friendship is mutual, that love is reciprocal, that relationships require effort from both sides. Vitality follows alignment, and when you align yourself with the right people, everything transforms. Ignore who ignores you, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Stand with those who stand with you, not because you need them, but because choosing each other is beautiful. Your vitality is limited, your time is borrowed, your peace is precious. Stop giving them away to people who wouldn't protect them. Exist by resonance. Be where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated, and watch your life transform. If you're ready to protect your energy, affirm it here. I choose alignment. Number 5, defend your tranquility with deliberate force. Tranquility isn't a mood you accidentally discover. It's a stronghold you construct deliberately, decision by decision, limit by limit. And existence will assault those walls every single day. Individuals will knock. They'll demand entry. They'll manipulate you with guilt. They'll apply pressure. They'll insist that protecting your tranquility makes you self-centered. But here's what they won't reveal. The instant you stop defending your tranquility, everyone else will appropriate it. Lao Tzu understood this profoundly when he said, "Silence is a source of great strength." Not the silence of weakness, not the silence of fear, but the silence of power. The silence that declares, "I owe you no explanation." The silence that safeguards what's sacred. The silence that refuses to engage with turmoil. Your tranquility is the most valuable asset you possess. More valuable than currency, more precious than time. Because without tranquility, nothing else holds meaning. You can possess everything and feel nothing. You can accomplish everything and enjoy nothing. Tranquility is the foundation, and most individuals surrender it without a second thought. Consider how easily you permit people to disturb your tranquility. A text message ruins your morning. A comment derails your day. Someone's opinion about your existence keeps you awake at night. A conflict that has nothing to do with you somehow becomes your emotional burden. You absorb other people's stress like a sponge and then wonder why you're always drowning. This occurs because you never learned that you're permitted to protect yourself. You were taught that being available means being accessible at all times, that caring means carrying everyone's problems, that love means sacrificing your tranquility for someone else's comfort. But all of that is manipulation, masquerading as virtue. Genuine love doesn't demand your destruction. Genuine care doesn't require your suffering. Genuine connection doesn't cost you your sanity. And anyone who suggests otherwise is attempting to exploit you. They want access to your tranquility so they can disrupt it. They want permission to dump their chaos into your calm. And if you grant it, they'll take everything and leave you with nothing. They surrender to arguments that don't matter, to people who don't deserve access. to drama they weren't even part of, to opinions from strangers, to problems that aren't theirs to solve. They permit anyone and everyone to disturb their inner world and then wonder why they're anxious, exhausted, overwhelmed. It's because they left the gate open. Here's the truth that will challenge you. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not your family, not your friends, not your partner. Access is earned. It's not an entitlement, it's a privilege. And you get to decide who earns it, based on how they treat what you grant them. Do they respect your boundaries? Do they honor your time? Do they contribute to your tranquility or subtract from it? Some people are chaos incarnate. They inhabit drama, and they need you to inhabit it too. They call with emergencies that aren't emergencies. They create problems where none exist. They thrive on conflict, and they pull you into it. And if you're not vigilant, you'll spend your entire existence managing their emotional weather while your own sky remains overcast. You need to understand something essential. Some people are addicted to chaos, not because they're malicious, but because chaos is familiar. Tranquility makes them uncomfortable. Calm makes them anxious. So they generate problems. They initiate arguments. They manufacture drama, and they need you to participate because your reaction validates their chaos. When you refuse to engage, when you remain calm in the face of their storm, one of two things occurs. Either they'll escalate, attempting harder to pull you in, or they'll move on to someone who will provide the reaction they seek. Either way, your responsibility is the same. Remain still, remain quiet, remain protected. The people who genuinely love you won't test your tranquility. They'll protect it. They'll approach you with care, not chaos. They'll bring problems when they need authentic help, not drama for entertainment. They'll respect your boundaries without you having to constantly defend them. And when they do occasionally disturb your tranquility, they'll apologize and adjust. That's the distinction. You need to learn to say no. Not the apologetic no, not the explained no. Simply no. No, I can't assume that burden. No, I'm not available. No, that doesn't work for me. Without justification, without defense, just a clean, clear boundary. And when people push back because they will, you remain firm because your tranquility is not negotiable. Distance is sometimes the most compassionate offering. Not punishment, not rejection, simply space. There are people you love whom you cannot be close to because proximity to them costs you your tranquility. And you can love them from a distance. You can wish them well. You can hope they discover what they're seeking, but you don't have to immolate yourself to rescue them. This is where discipline becomes essential because protecting your tranquility isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. It's choosing not to respond to that text that will ignite an argument. It's walking away from conversations that exhaust you. It's turning off your phone when you need silence. It's declining invitations that feel like obligations. It's disappointing people to honor yourself. And yes, people will be upset. They'll label you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of being cold or selfish or different. And you know what? They're correct. You have changed. You stopped permitting them to treat your tranquility as worthless. You stopped being available for every crisis. You stopped absorbing everyone's pain. You changed because you had to, because remaining the same was destroying you. Silence becomes protection. When people attempt to bait you into arguments, silence. When they want you to defend yourself, silence. When they gossip and expect you to participate, silence. When they demand explanations you don't owe, silence. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Because you understand that not every battle requires a warrior. Some battles need to be starved of attention. Your tranquility is constructed in the quiet. In the mornings, you spend alone. In the evenings, you protect. In the spaces you create that belong exclusively to you. No phones, no demands, no performances. just you and the existence you're building. That's where strength resides. That's where clarity originates. That's where you remember who you are beneath all the noise. Defend it with everything you possess. Don't permit anyone to convince you that protecting your tranquility is selfish. It's survival. It's sanity. It's the difference between living and merely existing. Construct your walls. Secure your gates. Admit only what honors what's inside. And observe how your existence transforms when you finally prioritize yourself. Tranquility isn't passive. Tranquility is a choice you make every single day. Choose it, protect it, live it. If you're finally prioritizing yourself, type this with conviction: I defend my peace. Number 6, forge a character you can depend on. When everyone departs, you remain. That's the reality no one prepares you for. At the conclusion of every story, every relationship, every season of your existence, there's one constant: you. And if you haven't constructed a character you can trust, you'll collapse beneath the weight of your own company. You'll flee from yourself. You'll fill every silence with noise. You'll search for anyone to distract you from the person you've become. The Stoic philosopher Heraclitus stated it precisely: character is destiny, not your circumstances, not your fortune, not who loves you or who leaves you. Your character, the internal foundation you construct, determines everything that follows. And most individuals never construct it. They borrow their identity from others. They define themselves by their relationships. And when those relationships conclude, they have nothing remaining. So what does it mean to forge a character you can rely on? It means becoming someone you respect, someone whose choices you trust, someone who maintains promises, especially the ones made to themselves. It begins with integrity, not the type others observe, the type no one observes. The promises you maintain when breaking them would be simpler. The truth you speak when deception would benefit you. The work you complete when no one's monitoring. The person you are in private, that's your authentic character. Here's the test most individuals fail. What do you do when no one will ever discover? When there's no witness, no accountability, no consequence? Do you still execute the right action? Do you still honor your word to yourself? Do you still uphold your values? Or do you take the shortcut, manufacture the excuse, break the promise, and tell yourself it doesn't matter because no one observed? That moment right there, that's where character is either constructed or demolished. Not in the grand public moments where everyone's observing, in the small private moments where you're the only one who will ever know. When you choose to rise even though you could remain in bed. When you speak truth even though deception would be simpler. When you execute what you said you'd do even though you no longer feel inclined. Most individuals believe character is about being virtuous when it matters. But character is about being consistent when it doesn't appear to matter at all. It's about cleaning when no one's visiting, exercising when no one will observe your physique, working on your objectives when no one's inquiring about your progress, being honest when dishonesty would go unnoticed. That's character, and it's constructed one invisible choice at a time. Most individuals perform character. They act honestly when honesty benefits them. They appear when it appears favorable. They execute the right action when someone's observing. But authentic character exists in darkness, in the moments where no one would ever discover, where you could take the shortcut and face no consequences, where you could break your word and no one would find out. What you do in those moments, that's who you genuinely are. Constructing this kind of character requires brutal honesty with yourself. You must stop manufacturing excuses. Stop blaming others for where you are. Stop pretending you're a victim of circumstances you created. Examine your existence right now. The portions you dislike, the patterns that keep repeating, the problems that follow you everywhere. You played a role in that. perhaps not all of it, but some of it. And until you acknowledge that, you cannot transform it. The most challenging person to be honest with is yourself, because you know all your own excuses. You know the reasons behind your failures. You know the context that makes your mistakes comprehensible. You can justify anything to yourself. And that's dangerous, because if you can always rationalize away your failures, you'll never rectify them. You need to become your own harshest and most compassionate critic. Harsh enough to confront yourself when you're deceiving yourself. Compassionate enough to believe you can improve. Most individuals are either excessively harsh or excessively soft. Excessively harsh, and you destroy yourself with criticism. Excessively soft, and you never develop. But the appropriate balance, that's where transformation occurs. Ask yourself difficult questions. Why did that relationship truly end? What role did you play? Why do you keep arriving in identical situations? What pattern are you perpetuating? Why haven't you accomplished what you said you'd accomplish? What excuses are you manufacturing? These questions cause discomfort, but they also heal, because once you perceive the truth, you cannot unperceive it. And once you cannot unperceive it, you can finally transform it. Here's what occurs when you forge authentic character. You become your own finest companion, not in a narcissistic manner, but in a healthy way. You appreciate your own company. You trust your own judgment. You don't require constant validation because you validate yourself. You can exist in silence without spiraling. You can be alone without experiencing loneliness. You become someone you actually desire to be. This means developing self-discipline, executing what you said you'd do even when motivation expires, rising when you said you would, completing what you initiated, honoring commitments to yourself the same way you'd honor them to others, perhaps more. Because every time you violate a promise to yourself, you instruct yourself that your word carries no weight. And if you cannot trust yourself, whom can you trust? It means constructing resilience. Existence will fracture you multiple times. You'll fail. You'll lose. You'll encounter situations you're unprepared for, and your character determines whether you remain shattered or rebuild. Resilient individuals aren't individuals who never fall. They're individuals who always rise again, who learn from the pain, who become stronger in the breaking. That's character. It means knowing your values and inhabiting them, not the values you proclaim, the values you actually practice. If you state family matters but never call, if you state health matters but destroy your body, if you state honesty matters but deceive when convenient, those aren't your values. Those are your aspirations. Your genuine values manifest in your calendar and your bank account and your daily selections. And it means being someone you'd want to be confined with, because eventually you will be in the quiet moments, in the challenging seasons, in the times when everyone else has their own existences and you're left with yours. Can you endure yourself then? Can you gaze in the mirror and respect who gazes back? Can you trust that individual to make sound decisions, to continue progressing, to not abandon themselves? This is the work no one discusses, constructing yourself into someone reliable, someone steady, someone who doesn't require external circumstances to be okay, someone who carries their own tranquility, their own purpose, their own worth. Because ultimately, you're the only individual guaranteed to be present. Ensure you're someone worth being with. If you're committed to becoming someone you respect, affirm it here. I trust who I'm becoming. You began this video seeking truth, and now you possess it. 6 truths that most individuals spend their entire lives avoiding. That standing alone isn't failure, it's fortitude. That loyalty is demonstrated by conduct, not declarations. That being forgotten is liberation, not tragedy. That your vitality must flow toward alignment. That your tranquility requires fierce defense. that the character you construct is the only thing you can genuinely depend on. These aren't comfortable truths. They demand you release people you cherish. They demand you accept impermanence. They demand you assume responsibility. They demand you execute the difficult work no one observes. But they're also the truths that will emancipate you, free from requiring validation, free from false commitments, free from vitality vampires, free from the burden of attempting to be remembered, free to simply exist. Standing alone isn't the penalty, it's the purpose. It's where you finally encounter yourself, where you construct the foundation that nothing can unsettle, where you become unbreakable, not because nothing causes you pain, but because you understand you can withstand whatever arrives. So stand. Stand in your truth, stand in your boundaries, stand in your character, stand even when everyone else sits down. Stand even when standing costs you relationships. Stand because you finally comprehend that you were never truly solitary. You were always present, and you're finally enough. Before you depart, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Drop a comment with the affirmation that resonated most powerfully. Share this video with someone who requires to hear it. And subscribe to Stoic Mindset Mastery, because we're just commencing. This is where we construct strength collectively. Now go construct an existence so solid that whether individuals remain or depart, you remain standing. If you're prepared to stand unshaken, regardless of who leaves, declare it loudly. I stand complete alone.